All right, we're gonna get started here in just a second for anyone attending right now. Here we go. I'm going to, Patrick just made you a panelist. There we go. Here we go. And Patrick, when you're ready to turn on your video, we can get ready to rock.
Awesome. I'm working on it. It says unable to start video, so let's see what I can do here.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you a co-host to see if that allows you.
Hey, it
There
looks
we
like that
go.
did the trick. There we go.
How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. Happy Thursday.
Dude, days don't really matter right now. I didn't
Forget
realize it
about
was
it.
a Thursday. I thought yesterday was Friday. I don't know what's going on, but I'm showing up anyways, so I'm here for it.
No, hey man, I really appreciate you jumping on today. I think, just first of all, we've known each other for quite some time. We've worked together on projects in the past, and I see the quality of work that you put out, and I think more people need to know about it. And the topic today, content strategies for real estate agents, is it's a hot topic, and it's a tough topic because so many of us. We want to be building out that content strategy. We want to be building out that brand, but we don't know where to go, resources, tools, ideas. And so that's what I want to dig into you, because I've seen the content that you put out, and it's a 10, man. Like, you have really good content, you tell really good stories. And I think a lot of us can benefit from your knowledge. And so
Yeah,
I certainly want to dig into that today. But before we do that, I want to just make sure that everyone knows who you are. So
sure.
just at a high level, right? You have your own agency. You work with a lot of different businesses. What led you to your agency and building story brands for businesses, Patrick?
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey, first off, I appreciate the invite here. It's really great to talk with you and with your audience, and I appreciate the kind words. So thanks for A, thinking of me and inviting me, and B, thanks for that great intro. I'll try to do some justice to it in my own self-explanation here, but no promises to be made there. So yeah, I mean, as you said, uh, I own a marketing agency called the Zangardi Studio. And what we do is we help businesses tell their story. So I'll kind of put a little pin in that there and get back to how I started and why I started, which I think is kind of what your question was. So as you mentioned, we kind of go back for a few years. We've worked on a couple projects together, always kept in touch. We have a lot of similarities from kind of how we think about business and how we think about marketing. So I've always respected that and appreciated that about you. And that was something that in my time pre-Zangardi Studio, when I was working in marketing and design and kind of agency roles, I'd always really aspired to do was to tell stories. Um, I believe that the businesses that succeed, especially in today's market and where things are going in the future, they succeed because they have a great story and they're authentic in the way that they tell it, and they don't hold that back from their audience. It's something that they really own and they live with, and they really live to tell. And that's something that I always wanted to be able to help our clients figure out and to do for themselves. So long story, and I'm really going to make it a short one, but I have a long-standing obsession and passion with photography and telling stories through photography. And I have a professional background in marketing and in storytelling and in professional sales. And my goal about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when I started the firm, Zangardi Studio, was to take those two passions of mine and put them together. And I'd seen kind of the writing on the wall in 2015, 2016, leading up to me starting the company, that social media, telling stories using digital methods, and really kind of personal branding was going to be the next kind of thing in business. To grow their business through storytelling. So what we do here at Zangardi Studio is exactly that. We help brands to develop their branding, their positioning, and their messaging strategies, and then bring that to their audience through digital marketing, through visual storytelling like photography, graphic design, and videography, and overall just communicate who they are and how they bring value to their companies and to their brands.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Patrick. You guys do an awesome job. We work with a lot of great companies. And before we get into content and content strategies, you mentioned it, but we should understand the why, right? The why behind content and why it's so important. And we both know, it begins with the brand. So for you, you kind of touched on it, but why is building an individual brand important to you? And then beyond that, why is it more important than ever before to be building out your individual brand today?
That's a strong question. That's a great question. And it's nuanced in the answer, I think. So um, I have long thought of marketing and branding as two sides of the same coin, right? They're interconnected, they are interwoven, and they are equally as important in my opinion. However, branding, I believe, can be defined as what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? What people remember about you personally or your company after interacting or seeing something from your company. And marketing is what you're telling your audience and it's what you're showing your audience. So you can see that they're connected. It's all about telling a story. It's all about making somebody understand who you are, what you do, and how you can help them. Um, but to answer your question, why branding and why personal branding has been an interest of mine and something that I find to be extremely important. It's really because the personal brand, what you are remembered by, and this is either you as a professional salesperson or you as a business, as a brand, it's what they remember you. It's what they tell their colleagues. It's what they tell their friends. And that's just as important as everything you're doing from a sales and marketing perspective, because that's what sticks. That's what gets that kind of viral kind of spread when it comes to your messaging and your marketing.
That's it, man. That's totally it, right? It's how you make somebody feel at the end of the day. And it starts with the content and the stories that we put out there. So let's talk types of content, right? Because there's a lot out there. So when it comes down to building out that brand through content, what types of content should we be using to build our brand, right? Like you mentioned you love photography, and there's so many, like video, long form, short form, text, questions, GIFs, right? Like TikTok's all about short, digestible video GIFs. So what are the types of content that we could be using to build our brand on social platforms and online?
Yeah, really, really good question. And to me, it comes down to two questions that you should ask yourself when it comes to content. First question is, what am I most comfortable with? And then second question is, what does my audience expect on the platform that I'm thinking about? So the first question is, what am I comfortable with, is something that I always like to ask our clients and that I ask myself. As soon as you are faking it or doing something that you don't enjoy doing, that kind of becomes noticeable in your marketing, in your content especially. So as you mentioned, there's video, there's blogs, there's podcasts, there's short digestible email, there's video, there's, you name it, different types of content. The first thing that I would suggest that everybody do is think, how do I communicate? What am I most strong at from a communications perspective? If you're a terrible writer, maybe don't try to write a long form email or a long form blog post. But if you're a great communicator through other methods, audio, video, etc., sketching on whiteboards and taking a picture of it with some narrative behind it, that's something that you should really own. And the more that you can do of that, the more that becomes part of your own personal brand.
What are your thoughts on curating content, right? Finding other content and sharing it, even though it's not your own, maybe it's relevant to your beliefs. what are your thoughts on curating? How often should we be putting curated content into our strategy, or should we try to make it our own as much as possible?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm a fan of curated content, specifically when you can add value on top of it or some type of um, context, some type of editorial that goes along with that curated content. So, for example, if you are sharing some news in the industry about interest rates at a historic low, or about new procedures to purchasing a home, or to getting a mortgage or a refi or something like that, and you can add value on top of the article that you shared that would be specific to what your audience or what your customer base needs to know or is interested in. That's a great way to be timely and relevant with your content and add value on top. How
So if I'm
often
here,
you should, I think, go right ahead.
no, I was just gonna say. So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is it's cool it's totally fine to find other content, through other various platforms and share it on your own, but making sure we're putting our own twist with it, whether it be a comment or a video explaining why this piece of content is relevant to the audience. Correct?
Absolutely. That's 100% correct. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So, and I see that, that's one way to really get going, right? Is in we're thinking about what ideas can we have to put ourselves out there. I have 10 minutes to go put a piece of content out there. One thing I think that everyone should know is that, like, there is content out there for you to digest and recycle on your own platforms, but just put your own twist on it. I think that's how you're going to drive connection with your audience. And Patrick, I want to get into, because you mentioned this, and social platforms love it, but video, right? Video
Yep.
is like, it's every platform is loving it. The algorithms are loving it, and it's because it's so vulnerable, but it's very visual, right? We can draw attention in really quickly, but on the same side of that, it's hard to create and it's super time consuming. So
It is.
there's this wall of like, it's great, video is amazing, but I don't have the time or the resources to create it. And most of us don't have, most of us real estate professionals, whether you're agents or loan officers, we don't have a budget to hire an agency to create all of our video content. So in your opinion, what's a good way to start pushing out videos with ease? Are there tools out there to help us? What is your advice around video, around, pushing out that video content?
Yeah, that's that's a really great question. You're right though. Video is great from a communications perspective. It's great because the platforms love it, and it's quick to digest on the consumption side. So your audience, it's easy for them to see that. But you're right. It's not necessarily easy or fast for you as the marketer to put together. I mean, my recommendation when it comes to that is not to overthink it. And what I mean by that is you don't need to have a production studio style video or quality video for social media. You don't want it to look like you shot it, in a pitch black room. You kind of mind your settings and shoot by an open window or something. But nobody needs to go out there and buy a $5,000 video camera setup and editing setup just for social media content. We're all carrying around iPhones, iPads, Androids, etc. Those are more than enough from a quality standpoint to shoot. So don't overthink that. Don't let skill or your equipment be the thing that holds you back. So outside of that, I think just starting is a good idea. Most of us are doing stuff all day long that is almost on autopilot for us because we're professionals, we're experts, and we just know it as table stakes, as something that is a part of our daily life or a part of doing business. But we need to remember your customers, your audience, it's not necessarily part of their daily life, part of their expertise, or something that is just table stakes to them. So shooting a quick video when you're doing something that you do 500 times a day or 500 times a week, explaining what you're doing, a simple trick, how you learned that, is a great way to share your expertise in a quick way without really having to do too much preparation or planning around it, but still add a ton of value for your customers. You can even film it, on your phone, edit it right there on your phone, and get it off onto social media within 5 minutes of producing it.
And Patrick, you make that sound so easy, but a lot of us have an innate fear of video, right? And putting ourselves out there, whether we don't like the way that we look or we don't like the way that we sound. What do you say to that?
Well, first off, I can recognize and I can understand and appreciate that, because as much as I am saying it and perhaps making it seem easy, I feel the same things myself, and I know that our clients do as well when we're pushing video, and when we're talking about using video for the same type of marketing things that we're talking about now. So I respect it, I understand it. But you're right, what you said before earlier on about sharing some vulnerability. I think that is important, especially in today's always connected, always on kind of world. Having a sense of understanding around being about being vulnerable and showing who you really are as a person, I think opens you up to your customers, to your audience, in a way that being behind a keyboard typing doesn't. So it shows some humanity. It allows you to allow somebody to kind of get to know you a little bit differently than they would in otherwise polished kind of marketing way. So even now, as we're thinking about the coronavirus, the work from home, a lot of stuff going digital in the near term and perhaps the midterm, video is a great way to kind of get that person-to-person contact that you otherwise would see day in, day out at networking events, at meetings, at showings and stuff like that. If you're able to use video to still kind of get to know somebody and put a face to the name, you're going to be able to really benefit from it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And Patrick, you're obviously 100% right. It's all about reps too. Like the more we put ourselves out there, the more comfortable we become. And a good friend of mine gave me a really good tip. He said, start with a small group, right? Like get like a group of friends that you could five, 6 friends in a group text, and shoot a couple of videos and shoot them over to the group, right? And so you can get comfortable in sharing video to people that you trust, and then expand from there.
That's a huge, huge recommendation. I really, really like that.
So in your opinion, Patrick, how long, when we're talking about social channels, should we try to keep videos a certain length because of attention span, or what are your thoughts on video length on platforms?
Yeah, great question. So that's the $1 million question, though, right? It's almost impossible to answer in terms of length. However, what I would recommend is getting right to the point at the onset of your video to hook somebody's attention. And from there, your video really should be as long as your platform allows, without being too short where you're cutting yourself off, or being too long that you're kind of losing attention. So for example, if you are planning to film a video for an Instagram feed, you've got about a minute for your video. And beyond that, it then turns into like an Instagram IGTV, where it's on its own dedicated kind of video channel. And you could go, I believe, as long as you need to go. I've seen hour-long videos on there. So think about the platform where you're sharing it, and what your audience is doing when they're on that platform. If you're shooting something, for example, for your website, for a blog, and you're including a video on there, you've got a lot more control over that, because there are no platform limitations. Outside of that, if you're shooting for an Instagram story or for a Facebook post or for something like that, of course, shorter is better. Brevity is key. Don't go overboard in terms of length just to try to keep your video longer. I'd say, make it as short as you can while still having a clearly thought out message, and that you get your point across.
Yeah, and a good tip too, Patrick, that I've used in the past is, I like to say, start at the 40-yard line, right? You don't have to introduce yourself to every video. You have to say like, hey, my name's Jason Perkins, and I'm a realtor, and I'm at 123 Main Street, and I'm going to walk you through this house. Because like you just said, you got to grab their attention quickly, right? So instead
Yeah.
of saying like that whole intro, just say like, you know, like, you got to see this kitchen. It's amazing. Come with me, right? Like that's, we got to, like, you have 3 seconds to earn three more, right? So we got to start at that 40-yard line with our content to bring them into the conversation, right?
Really, really agree with that. And with video, if you're able to include some type of, kind of lower thirds, like right about here in the video screen that explains what you're going to talk about in the video, like a title card or a title tag, that also is going to be helpful. There's a lot of free software that you can do that on your phone. That makes it extremely easy. Canva, for one, will allow you to create that. There's iPhone and Android apps that will allow for you to put a title card or a lower thirds kind of card from your phone, and you can just shoot it, go to the app, upload it, put your title card on there, and then save it to your camera roll and use it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something that you hook up to a computer and really spend a ton of time on.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk about that with you here at the end, because we're going to talk about our tool belt, right? Our favorite tools and software to help bring out quality content, putting those lower thirds in, because we get overwhelmed. Like, how did you do that? How do you do all these animations? The cool thing is there's some amazing tools out there that make it very simple, like Canva you mentioned. We're going to talk about a couple more, but before we get into that, I want to talk to you about publishing content. Where should we be publishing our content, on our website, on our blog, what social channels should we be posting on? All of them? Should we be cross promoting, which means just pushing out our content, sharing the same content on multiple channels? What are your thoughts on what platforms we should be using?
Yeah. So I believe content should be platform specific. And what I mean by that is I don't want to say it as a rule. No, I'm not saying don't share something across platforms, but what I am saying is, create content for a platform. So your Instagram post should be specific to Instagram. You create it with those nuances and with that audience in mind. Your LinkedIn should be created with your LinkedIn audience and your LinkedIn platform in mind, and so on. So a little bit further than that, though, I very much believe in what I've been calling the spoke and wheel or spoke and hub kind of model, where your website should be the hub of your content or your wheel, and then your social channels, your email, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your YouTube, those are all kind of the spokes of your overall wheel. Like, it's connected by your site. And what that allows you to do is create your content and drive people to your website, where you can convert them with a lead or a lead magnet or something like that, in a place that you own. It's owned platform for your site. So I very much still believe in the overall efficiency of using your website as a central kind of place to manage your brand and your content, but you use your social channels and your email and your text and all these other kind of marketing avenues as a way to communicate in a place that your audience is already hanging out and where they already are. Once you've kind of connected them and provided value, getting them to your website then to convert and take that next step into the marketing and buying journey, that becomes something that is managed in your own kind of ecosystem, your own platform.
Yeah, that's great. I totally agree with that, Patrick. And one thing too is, I think, you don't have to be everywhere, right? Like,
Right.
be on the platforms that your audience is on. If your audience is on Facebook, like, play on Facebook. If you're gonna get a ton of traffic to your site, play on your site. Your content's on your site. If you're huge on TikTok, then that's where your audience is. Like, be where your audience is with your content. You don't have to be everywhere, right? Because that's just overwhelming and time consuming. We can focus our energy and our content on one or two platforms of where our audience is and stay there.
Agreed. I definitely agree with that. And further, I think that your communication patterns and channels can be platform specific. So I personally use LinkedIn very often, several times a week, if not daily, to share content and my insight with my professional network. For our company, we're doing the same thing on Zangardi Studio. We're using LinkedIn to share our content, to engage in conversations, and so on. And I do the same on Facebook for our company. However, on Instagram, I'm really not using that from a business perspective. Zangardi Studio basically has an Instagram account to have an account and to hold the platform, hold the real estate, so to speak. But we're not using it that much from a business perspective. Patrick is using it from a communications perspective with my audience, my friends, my kind of network. But I'm really not there to sell. I'm there to connect, and I'm there to add value in other ways.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. So let's talk about content quality and consistency, because again, we want to be putting out good quality content, but we also want to make sure that it's consistent enough. Do you think one is more important than the other around quality and consistency?
That's a really tough question.
It's a tough question.
Because that can be construed in a few ways. That can be, I just need to get something out there, so let's just phone it in and get it there, just because I need to hit my 11:30 a.m. post. Or it could be on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm not going to post anything because this isn't right. It's not there. So I'm very much a proponent of the done is better than perfect kind of method of thinking. Not saying that you should put out junk, and not saying that you should phone it in, but don't let perfection be the enemy of completed and out there and connected. So to answer the question, I guess, as directly as I can, I feel like I'm kind of dancing around it a little bit. No, I don't think that there's a perfect answer or a perfect method to quality versus quantity. But I will say that, especially on the social media platforms, consistency is appreciated by the algorithms. Consistency is appreciated by the news feed, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, with being seen organically by others. So, sharing posts at a time that your audience is active, sharing content at times that you tend to share content consistently is going to be of benefit to you. And if you can avoid missing those marks, you should avoid it. You should do everything that you can to put that content out in a consistent manner. But that being said, if the content is not something that is going to be engaged with, and you're just winging it just to get something out there, it could actually do more harm than good over the long term.
I love what you said about just, don't let perfection get in the way of putting your content out there. And I think that's spot on, right? Like, we always think we need to be putting out like perfect content. We like think about it, we analyze it, we overanalyze it, and then it doesn't get posted because we're like, I didn't like the way I sounded, I don't like the way I said that. And then the content's not, and at the end of the day, people care less about you than what you think they do. Right? It's the consistency piece of it that you said, that mentioned, is so important for the algorithm too, right? Like, so with that said, in your opinion, let's for social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, how is there a cadence for how often we should be posting? Like 3 times a week, once a week? Does that include stories? What are your thoughts on that?
So my answer is going to be kind of it depends. It depends on what you're comfortable with and what you're capable of upholding to. So if you can post daily and you can engage with your audience daily, please do. That's going to pay you back dividends in the long run. If you can't, or if you're more interested in kind of trying things out a little bit more slowly over time, getting your reps in, Jason, like you mentioned, and getting used to it, getting your chops up, post twice a week, post 3 times a week in order to kind of feel out what your audience cares about, what your network is going to engage with. So I would say, when you're getting started on social media specifically, 3 to 4 days per week is going to be a good starting spot. It's not so much that you're going to be, going crazy, trying to create this content. You can create it in ways that is systemized, in ways that is not biting off more than you can chew, and even pre-scheduling perhaps. And I know we're going to probably move and talk to that in a little bit more detail in a bit. but that 3 to 4 days is going to be seen a lot. I'm a big baseball fan, and I always use this analogy when I'm talking to my clients and when I'm advising people. A Hall of Fame hitter is a 300 average. That's 3 hits per 10 at bats, right? And if you create more, if you get more at bats, you get more reps, you're going to get more hits. And your average is going to go up. And we also, conversely, have to remember you're not going to get a 10 out of 10, kind of hit rate when you're doing social media content. 3 out of 10 is pretty darn good.
Man, I love that. That's a great way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
We should not expect to hit a home run every single time we put content out there, but it's the consistency that's going to get us there, right? And going to move up our average of good content. I love that. So
yeah,
with that said, it looks like, consistency is key. We should not try to perfect every piece of content, and not every piece of content is going to be a home run, right? But at the same time, we've got to come up for ideas to have that strong consistency. So let's talk about that. As real estate professionals, that's a huge gap. That's where I get the biggest questions is I need to find ideas for content. So in your opinion, where should we start with ideas for content? Where can we find good ideas for content as professionals? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So news and events is always a good place to kind of get the ideas flowing, what's happening in the industry and how can you add some editorial, to it and some expertise. So that's a great way, I think, to just begin thinking about content topics and planning what you can communicate. Outside of that, I always recommend answering your FAQs. What are you always asked? What is your customer most concerned or curious about? And how can you create content for social or content for your website or whatever platform we're thinking about that answers those FAQs, those frequently asked questions? Those are going to be of benefit because you already know the answers. You're the expert, and your audience is asking these questions, whether they're asking you directly or if they're Googling it, or asking their network or their friends for these answers. So by answering these FAQs and writing content around that, you are positioning yourself as an expert, and you're positioning yourself as somebody who is giving quality, giving expertise, and taking time to better your audience's understanding, your customers' understanding of the things that you solve. So FAQs are a great spot. Go back to your email and maybe look at your last 20 or 30 communications with your clients and say, well, what were they asking me? When you can find a pattern of what those questions are, whether it's a topic or an actual question in detail, and you can provide content around that, it's going to be a hit.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, a lot of times we forget how knowledgeable we actually are in our business because we just get so used to answering the same thing, and it's almost like it becomes a part of our body, right? Just answering these questions. We don't think that that's actually very valuable, the knowledge that we have. And so we, as whether again, loan officers, real estate agents, anybody in the real estate world, that you're a service provider, pay attention to the questions you're being asked, because more than likely more people are asking those questions to themselves, or trying to find answers to those questions. And that's what you're saying, is that turn those FAQs into your content. I love that. Another one too, Patrick, that I really appreciate is that think about all these like Zillow, for instance. They probably have 75 people on their marketing team, right? And they're constantly putting out content, and they're looking at algorithms. They're looking at what people are paying attention to. They're doing the same thing. They're just doing it at scale at a national level. So what I like to do is go to some of these big players. What content are they putting out? And then I'll just repurpose it, right? Make it in my own words. Like, let's say they're talking about inventory. Cool. Well, it seems like inventory is a hot topic for Zillow. They've done some research around it. I'm gonna make a topic, a video, a post about inventory from my own perspective, right? So that's a good way to start too.
I really like that. And what that also does, Jason, is it, especially if we're thinking about your blog or your website, it allows you to um, it allows you to almost game the SEO, the search engine optimization system. And I don't mean that in a negative by any stretch. And I don't mean that as being something that is a golden ticket or a silver bullet to shoot you to the top of Google. But what I do mean is if people are asking these questions and they're searching Google for it, and you're able to write your headlines or include the keywords that they are asking in your content, you're going to have a higher likelihood of your search being found, your page being found on that search engine result page. And by doing that, you're going to be getting more at bats. You're going to be getting more views, and your overall reach is going to increase.
Yeah, and a lot of that's where I see a lot too, Patrick, is, just from a search engine optimization perspective, we have massive opportunity in that being local, right? That's the way the Google algorithm works, is people are searching locally, right? And that's our advantage as service providers in the real estate industry, is that Zillow can't touch that. We're the local experts. So showcase that, put that content out, right? It's only going to help your search algorithm. And of course, attaching that to your social channels. So Patrick, I want to ask you, we mentioned this earlier, but I think this is a huge gap as well, is let's talk about the tool belt, right? What tools are out there to help us build better videos, create better imagery, create, brand guidelines and style guides for our business, so our brand is consistent across channels. What tools out there do you recommend?
So I'm a fan of not overthinking your tool set or your toolbox, but instead thinking about the tools that are going to be most used and provide the most long-term value and growth for you. So I'm not the kind of guy who overthinks tools or who looks to technology to solve problems. I'm the type of guy who looks to technology and tools to enable you to do better work faster and better, right? So with that being said, and I'm going to kind of answer this specifically around social media content and like time management, because that's something that I think is very important. So I mentioned earlier Canva. It's canva.com, and it's one of my favorite tools that I recommend for people to use when creating like social media graphics or things like blog headers and stuff like that. Canva's a graphic design tool that you can use on your phone or iPad or computer. It's got great pre-made templates. It lets you just drag and drop, add your logo, add your color, branding and stuff like that to it, and even publish directly to social media platforms from within the app. So that's probably my number one, specifically for, people that either don't have the time or maybe don't have the eye, for creating graphic content like that. Is Canva. It's a free software. You can get a pro account for like $9 a month or something like that, and it is well worth it for use in that way. I'm also a big fan of scheduling stuff, whether it's scheduling posts to be shared at a later date or just scheduling reminders to post, at a later date. Which is actually my preferred method. I don't often actually schedule posts to go to Facebook or Instagram or stuff or Twitter or anything like that. I more often schedule myself a reminder to post because I found that I just get better engagement because I'm active on the network at that time, and I'm able to communicate more often, so I get a little bit more juice out of the squeeze. But I do like to use Hootsuite or Buffer. Those are softwares that connect to your social media platforms and lets you basically compose your tweets or compose your Facebook post or whatever the case may be, upload your art asset to it, and then say, I want this to be posted at 11 a.m. or I want to be reminded at 11 a.m. And you'll get a pop-up when it's time to post, and you'll be able to go and post it and go engage. So I love that.
Is there a cost to Hootsuite, Patrick?
There's a free version and a pro version. So the free, and I don't know all the specifics about what it allows and what it doesn't, but it allows you to connect to a smaller amount of networks, and it allows you to, I guess, pre-compose and schedule a smaller amount of assets per month. But it's free, and then you can get a very cost-effective pro version as well.
Awesome.
I also I edit a lot of my video on my phone or my iPad using a tool called Luma Fusion. And it's just a video app. You can basically film your video on like a DSLR or on your phone or tablet itself, and then edit using drag and drop on your iPad or on your phone. I believe there's an Android version as well. I like that because it takes away a lot of the overall complexity that editing video on a computer just kind of has by nature. Computers are great for editing video, but it's not necessary for the type of content most people are sharing on social media.
So Luma Fusion, and this is a app you can download on your phone too to access this?
It is. It's a paid app, but it's well worth it in my opinion. I don't recall the cost, but nothing more than maybe 20 or 30 bucks, not per month. Just you buy it once and you get it. But the reason that I like it is it allows you to edit a lot faster and with a lot less friction than a computer, especially when you consider most people are using their phones to manage social media in general. Having to go from phone to computer back to phone, it adds time and it adds friction. And you can limit that by bringing all your stuff onto one device.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. And what about content calendars, right? To kind of like strategize our content for the month. Are you a fan of that? What are your thoughts on building out a content calendar to keep us, lined in with our content?
Yeah, absolutely. Big fan of content calendaring. I like to think about it that in a way that is flexible and is not pre-scheduled so far out that you can't make changes if you need to. For example, something changes in your market or your industry, and you've got content already scheduled, well, you can just change it. Like nothing's set in stone. So I always like to put that kind of caveat out there when I'm talking about content calendars with our clients. I use a very simple content calendar. In fact, I'll share the link here so that you guys and your audience can see it and use it if you like it. But we use just a Google Drive file. It's a Google Sheets file that allows us to essentially schedule out on a monthly basis what topics and outlines, we can outline our topic that we want to post about, like for our blog content as well as for social media. So we basically have a Google Sheet, and I'll have my topic on a cell, and then my subtopics or my kind of outline of the post underneath it, and then the link to where that post can actually be found on my website. And then we have a second sheet to it that allows us to pre-schedule posts for Facebook, for LinkedIn, for Twitter, etc. And it just keeps us on the ball. And the reason that I pre-schedule, or at least pre-think about what our content's going to be from a content calendar perspective, is that in the future, it's a little bit of a pull getting it set up, but in the future, it reduces friction to creating content or to scheduling your content, because you've already done the thought, you've already put the thought into it, you've already kind of planned it out and created it. So you're not winging it, 3 weeks down the line. You've already got it mostly thought out. It just comes down into either going to your asset library and scheduling it, or creating that post based on your overall strategic plan.
Yeah, I think of it, that's perfect. I think of it like paying your bills, right? Like you don't just like wing your bills, right? Same thing with our content. Like we should be prepared and teeing up our content for the month so we're prepared for it, right? And we have that
Sure.
consistency there. I'll make sure I put that Google Drive link in the show notes too. Patrick, I really appreciate your time, your insight, your knowledge, everything you've shared today. I think there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of gold nuggets that you talked about, around authenticity, around platforms, around consistency, around idea generation. This is what we're all thinking about. And
Yeah.
if we can integrate some of the things that you said today, we're going to make content so much easier as part of our business. Patrick, where can more people find out about you?
Yeah, so you can find out about me on LinkedIn. Search Patrick Zangardi on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/Patrick Zangardi. You can find out more about me and the company at zangardi.com. And you can hit me up on Instagram if you want to kind of get a behind the scenes look on what I'm like. But yeah, I mean, that's basically, the best place to kind of find me. really appreciate you having me on, Jason.
Hey, Patrick, thanks again. Really appreciate it. You're awesome. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon, brother.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
See you, buddy.
See ya.